It's time to get hot and sweaty again. And welcome back to Body Beyond the Scales, the podcast that gets you stronger and more confident in your body through building better habits. So today we're going to be talking all about how to navigate summer, not in the nitty gritty details and the strategies that you'll need for events and stuff, because I did that in the last episode. But what we're going to be talking about is the big overarching, the big picture view of things, so that you feel more confident navigating summer as a whole and you're not feeling like you're on the back foot. This is going to be a lot more about the mindset side of stuff and the things that usually throw a spanner in the works. So let's get to it. The first thing that we're going to want to do is think on that overall big picture thinking. So have a look at what you're currently doing. So kind of before you go into your summer as a whole, summer here I'm referencing is kind of late July and August, kind of when the school holidays fall, because you might find that your routine gets thrown off when the kids are around or when things get hot and sweatier and things just are a little bit different and routines are just a little bit different. So first off, what I want you to do is look at how often you're completing your habits at the moment. So are you completing them every single day? Are you hitting them 80% of the time, 70% of the time? And what I want you to ask yourself is, rather than trying to improve it and building on what you did this last month or the last couple of months, can you match that? Can you hit exactly what you hit over the last few months on average? Can you hit that in August, in late July, August, September? If you can, that's going to be a great position, because the goal isn't every single month to move forward. Sometimes the goal is just to not move backwards. And August is usually a time that we want to think about that. And late July, August time, it is the trickiest time to navigate. I'm just having a moment where I can't believe that we're actually in late July at the moment. But it's actually the trickiest time to navigate that, because we want to feel like we're constantly moving forwards, but it's a time of the year where there's a lot of moving pieces with barbecues, with summer holidays, with the kids being off school. All of these moving parts can make things a lot harder to navigate. So asking yourself, can I maintain my current standard? If the answer is yes, perfect. If not, what alterations do you need to make to that number? What expectations do we need going into summer? Because a lot of the time we end up disappointed in ourselves because our expectations of ourselves were not met. So we need to make sure that going into summer, we have realistic expectations. If you don't think it's going to be feasible to hit your habits 100% of the time in the months of July, August, September, then it might be time to make a change. It might be time to change those expectations. So if we can lower those expectations down a little bit and figure out where we want to be and where we want to be at the end of summer, that will give us a good kind of reference point to work towards. And if you know what to expect, then you can't be disappointed. So that being said, once you set that expectation, do you feel like you're okay with that outcome? So if you expect to hit 80%, then what does that mean for you? Would you be happy with that outcome? If you expect to hit them 50% of the time, are you all right with that? What is that outcome? What does that tangibly mean for you? And if you do that and you think about it this way, it then just means that you've made a values aligned choice and your goals are aligned with the values that you have. And that's super important, because it means that you won't be disappointed, but it also means that you'll be able to live your life in the capacity that you want to live it. So from that, I want you then to think about, do you need to make any alterations? Do you need to just adjust anything that you're going to be doing in order to make sure that you hit them? Do you need to set some realistic expectations? And do you need to make any alterations to your routines? So the next thing to think about is, right, I know what I want to be achieving. What usually causes me a problem over summer? So is it the kids being off school and you're their permanent entertainment? So what you want to do here is maybe planning activities where you can get your steps in. I tend to find with my mum clients or parent clients, it's the constantly having the kids around and having to be taxi. Even if they're going to other stuff, it's you've got extra parts of your day that are going to be there, are going to be taken up with your kids. What a privilege! But just having that extra those extra little bits of time where you're going to have to account for not having that time to yourself, then it's maybe okay to stack things together. So let's say that you're going to be entertaining the kids. One thing you could do is go to the park. Right, well, while you're going to the park, what you could do is do laps of the playground whilst they're playing. What else you could do is maybe get them to go on their bikes, and whilst they go on their bikes, you walk at the side of them, or even you go on a bike. But just doing activities where you are also active is super useful. So think about how you can stack your own activity into their timetable, and figure out how you can plan things around that, and use your weekends. And also, if you do have kids and you are finding that you're thinking, how can I spend time with them? Spending time with them doing active things is things that they'll remember. I remember going on bike rides with my mum as a kid, and they're like fond memories. I remember like my most memories from childhood are when we were doing things, but like it wasn't to do with the thing that we were doing, but like if we just went for a picnic in the park, I still remember doing it with my mum. So it's really important just to recognize that like your kids want to spend time with you, even if they pretend that they don't. But like your kids want to spend time with you. Like they're not bothered where that is. That doesn't have to be in McDonald's. That doesn't have to be doing a specific thing. You can just make it something active where you get out and about. And especially if you've got young kids as well, like that's important to start those habits from an early age. So the next thing that usually causes problems is more social events. So just map those out and pre-decide. In the last one of these, so it wouldn't be the last episode, but the episode before that, it's called something like Hot and Sweaty Girl Summer. That's kind of like part one of this mini series. I spoke through like how to navigate the events in detail. So that might be holidays, barbecues, trips to the pub garden. I covered all of those and what to do there. The one thing I'm going to say here is just make sure you map out and pre-decide, especially if you know what's coming up already. Get those things in, get those things scheduled, and you'll be in a much better position. The next thing that usually causes problems then is being away from home and travel. And this doesn't necessarily mean holidays, but sometimes we tend to find that like we're traveling around a lot more, especially if you've got kids. It might be that you're going out for the day, or you're visiting family, or you're doing something different. And this is where we can start to understand this idea of like context dependent habits and context independent habits. So context dependent habits are habits that only happen in certain places. Context independent habits will happen anywhere. So summer's a really good opportunity to test the strength of your habits. The more independent a habit is, the stronger it will be. So say for example, brushing your teeth. Like all being well, you're probably brushing your teeth whether you're at home, whether you're out at a hotel. Like that's probably something that's happening every single day, and hopefully twice a day. So if you are someone who is brushing your teeth, like that is a context independent habit because you do it in a hotel, whether you stay at a friend's house, family's house, your house, like it's happening independent of context. However, there's context dependent habits, which might be something that you forget to do when you're not in routine. A really easy example of this is my iron tablets. I always forget to take iron tablets whenever I'm not in routine because I take them usually on a morning with my breakfast. But if I don't have the iron tablets with me, I don't see them straight in front of me, we forget to take the iron tablets. So it's really worth thinking about and thinking, is this a context dependent habit? Is this a context independent habit? And if you go away, get curious, what habits are you sticking with and what habits are you not sticking with? Because that will show you the ones that are independent are the ones that are a lot stronger and the ones that are a lot more like solidified. So I will check my watch regardless of where I am in the world, and I will make sure that I have hit my steps. That is a context independent habit for me. I'm doing that regardless of where we're at. Water, however, I am not as good at doing when I'm not at home. So it's something just to think about there, going, okay, what habits are stronger, what habits are weaker, like where are we finding that we're getting things in and where are we finding that we're struggling that little bit more. So just using your breaks as a like chance to reflect on that and figuring out which habits are strong and which ones are not particularly strong. The next thing that I find that people tend to come up a lot more in summer is emotional eating. This is one of those things where we can get stressed because of the lack of control that we have, and that leads to emotional eating. Now, I could do a whole episode on emotional eating, but what I have done very recently is put together the emotional eating Toolbox. So it's 5 videos that basically just break down in like, they're all like under 2 minutes, 20 seconds, I think. So yeah, like in basically less than 10 minutes, you'll know exactly how to handle emotional eating. I'll pop the link for that below. But what I would just recommend is just clicking that, going and doing the emotional eating Toolbox, and you'll be in a better position with emotional eating. The next thing to think about is just basically like everything that's coming up is how can you work around it? Have you got a strategy in place for working around those things? And as much as you can pre-plan and pre-prep for these events, the better that you will be. So finally, the next thing to think about is the minimum effective dose. So asking yourself, like, what's the minimum that you want to achieve this summer? Because setting yourself up for, if you're listening to this episode and you're thinking, there's going to be so much coming up this summer, then setting yourself the expectation that you're going to be absolutely perfect is ridiculous. Like, you're not, and you're setting yourself up to fail there. So what's the minimum effective dose that you need to do? We can have the standard that you want to hit, but what is the minimum that you want that you'd achieve? So for me, I have like 8,000 steps per day as like my minimum effective dose. So The reason that I have that is that from most of the research, the benefits start to slow down after you hit 8,000 steps. I think it's like 8,666 steps. So as long as I've hit 8,000 steps per day, like I love hit it. I do aim for 11. 11 is my goal every day, but I do aim for like a minimum of 8. And that is just something that I've kind of adopted, and that's my minimum effective dose. So asking yourself, what's your minimum effective dose for over summer? Is it 2 workouts per week instead of 3? Is it that you're going to be doing, you're going to be making sure that you do all of something like you're going to get all of your protein in, but it's all right if you don't hit your deficit calories on every single day? Is it that you're going to go up to maintenance for all of August? Like, what is it that you're going to do that's going to make you, that's going to put you in a position where you're happy with the outcome, but also you've got that minimum effective dose in there? So even if that is just a little bit and you just maintain, that's what's important. The next thing that we're going to want to think about then is the next best thing mindset. So when you can't be perfect and we're doing the minimum effective dose, or like when we're thinking about all of these things, what's the next best thing that you can do? So perfect might be that you're doing 3 workouts per week. The next best thing might be, right, well, usually I do my 3 workouts per week at the gym and I do an hour session there. Well, is it that you just do 45-minute sessions? Is it that you work out from home? What are those next best thing options for when you can't be perfect because your routine's about to be thrown? And I think here is when we're coming into summer, it's important to think it's not a if you're not perfect, it's a when you're not going to be perfect, because there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of things going to be coming up. So it's all right to think ahead and just go, right, what are my next best thing options? And one thing I'd advise you to do is just make a plan ahead of time. So you're not going into summer like with no idea of what next best thing options you can do. So once we've kind of set those parameters, we have an idea of the minimum effective dose. We have an idea of kind of like what standards you want to hold yourself to over the summer. Set some next best things up as well. So that's kind of like between the standard and the minimum effective dose, what kind of sits within that gap, and go, right, well, what's the next best thing? What do we need to do to make sure that I still hit that minimum effective dose, even if I'm not perfect to the standards I want? What alternatives can I do if things aren't going to plan? Then the other thing we need to do is recognize that if we do, fall quote unquote off track, how fast can we get back quote unquote on track? So asking yourself that speed to return, how can we make that speed to return, that rate to return as fast as possible? And that's really, really key, because most people, what they do is they go on holiday and then they spend 3, 4, 5 days afterwards still just kind of like faffing around, still in holiday mode. And their holiday ends up going from in 7 days to like 14 days because they didn't just get straight back to it when they got back. And it wasn't necessarily the 7 days of holiday that like set them back. It was the 14 days in total, because you had 7 days of just faffing around, 3 days before, 3 days afterwards, or whatever. Like, so it's really important that like I'm very aware that didn't add up to 7. But yeah, it's really important that you just reassess and just get yourself back like on track as soon as you can and have that fast speed to return. And then finally, also use like the reassessments every Sunday. So like on a Sunday, just plan ahead for the week that's coming up. We do this in check-in. So like whenever I coach someone, they complete like a check-in every week, and they'll complete that at the end of the week and tell me how the week went. And then on a Monday, I'll send them feedback. And what often like I find is that when you actually start reviewing your week and planning for the week ahead, you handle everything better because you've already kind of like mentally rehearsed it. And these mental rehearsals are so important because they allow for you to just be like, I have already planned ahead and already started to think about those next best thing mindset, those next best thing options, and seen any potential roadblocks, and you've already started to think and strategize about how you can get past them. So if you're able to do that, you're able to think about these things and go, oh, what am I like what's potentially coming up this week, reassess what's going on, like being like, oh, actually, do you know what, we've got the kids are at like a play group this week, there's a X, Y, and Z going along, we've got a barbecue booked in on Saturday, here's all the things that are going to be quite tricky, right? Well, I know that the kids going to the barbecue, or the kids going to the play group is going to throw me off with doing my steps on that day. So what I'm going to do is move things around. I'm going to take them to the play group, park the car in the car park, and then go for a walk around. So all of these little things that you can think about and that kind of pre-plan ahead are much easier to do if we're dealing with it in advance rather than trying to deal with it like in the moment. And then finally, the thing to remember here is that like if you can keep your momentum over summer, you're not going to be playing catch up in September. And even if you just maintain, you don't go backwards over summer, you're not going to be playing catch up in September. And September, October, November, December are going to be so much easier for you. So if you can ask yourself, what can you do over the next months to make sure that September is a easy month? How can we make September easier by just focusing on maintaining this month, or even making a couple of tiny tiny steps forwards, or even just normal steps if August is not going to be a tricky month for you, asking yourself, how can we keep the momentum up? I love the saying, like, an object in motion stays in motion. It's not saying, it's a law of physics, but like I love the law of physics, doesn't really roll off the tongue. But yeah, an object in motion stays in motion, and an object at rest stays at rest. It's a lot harder. You have to put a lot more energy and oomph into getting an object moving, to get you moving, than what you do to just keep it in motion. It's a lot easier to keep you in motion, to keep that momentum there, even if that's just doing those minimum effective dose things, using that next best thing mindset. It's a lot easier to keep doing that rather than putting yourself like into stop, start, because then every time you need all of this energy to get going again. So rather than that, like, it's just easier to keep yourself going, keep the ball rolling, keep yourself in motion. And that's what you're going to use the things that I've spoken about today to do, plus the strategies that I spoke about last time, to kind of get into the nitty gritty things and like the more in the moment like tactics. So yeah, if you've got any questions on this, feel free to drop me a message on either Instagram. Well, Instagram's the best place to drop me a message there. And yeah, if you've got any questions on that, or if you want to see any content on that, just send that across. But otherwise, if you've enjoyed this episode, make sure that you subscribe to the podcast, and make sure you subscribe to the YouTube. And otherwise, have an absolutely fantastic rest of the day.